Sorry, Jane. I just refer members to my declaration of interest. Good morning.
Morning.
Why was there no employer contribution for the benefit of employment of graduates in the conclusion of your report?
So there are three participants, aren't there? There are three sort of principal stakeholders in this. There is the taxpayer, there is the student, and there is indeed the employer. And it's a fair point that you raise, because employers, in a sense, are they're as it were the consumers of the product, aren't they? And that their businesses benefit from the output of universities and further education colleges. They do pay, in a sense, through corporation tax. Employers do pay through corporation tax. Our terms of reference excluded any consideration of taxation. I think, but for that, we might have looked at this.
Because obviously they pay the apprenticeship levy. So we have another scenario where FE comes with a premium or penalty, depending on what side of that fence you're talking about. But HE, the beneficiaries of HE as employers, they don't pay that. And it would strike me that for parity of esteem and balance, just with the apprenticeship levy payable, so too should there be a recognition of that paid by employers.
I certainly understand the point that you're making. We did comment on the role of employers in the report, and we noted the decline in a sort of training over the period, but our terms of reference did exclude taxation.
Both your report and myself and I are results of the 2017 general election. I enjoyed your report. I think it's a big and creative and strong summation of what is possible within the sector, though I'm concerned by the cherry picking and whether it survives a new Prime Minister. But my concern is that you would conclude, not least because of the 2017 election, but for the arguments that have been rehearsed here, that longer lifetime repayments for our lowest earners is a progressive move, that more to the taxpayer in absence of any payment by the employer is a progressive move, more deficit at a time when we're told the deficit, and in fact the government that instigated your review said the deficit above all else was the most important. You're making recommendations that increase deficit, and more complicated, which you yourself have said in this session that some changes in statement presentation might help, but ultimately things like the repayment cap introduce more complexity to a system already baffling.
So four points. Let me have a crack at them, and Professor Peck may want to come in. And thank you for your positive comments on the report. I had a sense there was a but coming, and there was. There were four buts. The longer repayment period. We wanted to produce something that was principle-based, and the principle we wanted to introduce was the idea that graduates pay for their loans, repay their contributions for the period over which they're benefiting. We recognise that working lives are extending, that lives indeed are extending. If this were to be implemented in October, we're talking about the world in 2059. But the other part of lengthening the period, as well as being principle based, was we wanted to produce better value as well. So that we comment in the report on bearing down, or at least making potential prospective students aware of the value and the quality of the courses that they're doing. So a longer period but better value. The employer point we discussed in the previous question. The deficit, we were asked to produce something that you're right, that didn't contribute, that didn't increase the deficit as a proportion of GDP. At the end of the report, we cost out our proposals at up to £500 million. So it's slightly stretching. It's slightly stretching the point. We did the best. We did the best that we could. The student contribution, the student loan point. The panel's view, and we discussed this right at the beginning, was that post-18 education should be shared. The cost of post-18 education should be shared between the beneficiaries, being the state and the student. And I accept your point about the employers. I don't know, Edward, whether you want to add
No, I
anything.
think that's a very good response.
Thank you.